And welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being with us. I'm Temple Hayes, and you're currently listening to On Fire for Life. We dedicated ourselves many years ago to focusing on what creates an energized human being. And I draw my teachings currently on this radio show from the quote by Howard Thurman: "Stop asking what the world needs and ask yourself what makes you come alive." Because that's really what the world needs, is more people that are alive. And our guest today, she teaches it, she lives it, she is it, she knows how to be it, and she is fire. And we bring her into our awareness, Randy Rolfe. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Temple. I
I'm
love
just
what
so
you're
glad.
doing.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. We just had a friend over, and we're us Leos, it's the birthday all month long. And so we were celebrating. And this is in reference to your teaching. Is that we just recently moved into a new property with a huge backyard and a huge, big, beautiful tree. And people had not lived here. No one had lived here. I would say a couple of years. And that being, it was waiting on us, right? But in this huge tree, there were only like 25 small leaves on the tree. And we're like, "Do you think it's okay? Do we need to get an arborist? Is it all right?" And we reminded ourselves of every property we moved into, we brought life. We brought the
Ah,
energy of life. And now that tree is just the most beautiful tree with leaves all over it. What is it they say? Nature unaided fails. I don't remember who said that. It's an impressive quote. But you work with that, with the natural laws and the natural ways of eating. So tell our guest about you today and your work.
oh, sure. Well, I'm all about living as closely to nature as possible, and I really started on that back when my first job was as a news reporter in Richmond, Virginia, and I went to a conference of scientists, and one of the scientists, when they were waiting to go on stage, I just went over and asked him, what's your topic? And he said, well, been doing studies that he was Hungarian, very thick accent. And he said, the people in Hungary don't get as much cancer as other developed countries because of the red peppers in their traditional diet. And just the light bulb went on. Well, of course we should eat the way people eat who don't get sick. And
Mhm.
I had been raised on American fare. My dad was a doctor and gave us vitamins, and they cooked from home. So it was good food, but we did have snacks, and we had a soda once a day and things like that. And I was excited about the idea of just getting back to really eating what humans are supposed to eat, real food out of the ground. And then the next big thing was with Scott and Helen Nearing, who were my great uncle and aunt, and they had a famous organic garden. It was on the cover of Mother Earth News all through the 70s and 80s and 60s even. And when we were there, we were surprised that after we'd been there a day, we both got tummy aches. We're like, this is crazy. This is the best food we've ever eaten, and we can't handle it. So that's when I knew we had to change everything. This was in 1971.
Wow.
And so I started reading and reading and reading, and I'm still reading about nutrition and how to keep the body running healthy. And so after I'd been reading for a couple months, I told my husband, I think the easiest thing to do is just throw everything out and start over again. No white flour, no white sugar, no clear oils, no white salt, and just get rid of the things that don't have any color, because that means that they don't have any energy. They're just reflecting all the energy they get from the sun. So he said, sure, it makes sense. And so we've been eating organic ever since, what I call single ingredient foods. Just don't buy things that have these long ingredient lists. And I really believe those lists kind of make us complacent that maybe these chemicals are okay, but they're not. And maybe one serving, okay, maybe that's fine. But accumulatively over a year, we can eat several pounds of completely alien chemicals, and the body has to deal with all of that. So that started me in the nutrition area, but it affects everything. And I've done a lot of work with parents and families, and nutrition affects how everybody feels. If people are dragging around and come home tired and irritable from school or work, then there's tension in the family. People don't get along, they're touchy, and things just magnify any problem that's going on. So I think just feeding ourselves properly is at the core of real good health. And so I've included that in all my parenting books as well as my nutrition books. And it's all about getting back to health. And I use magnetic products because I'm living indoors and I want to have that natural energy always around me. And you mentioned a tree. When we were homesteading for a while in upstate New York. We had both babies up there, and we had an Indian midwife, and her husband was also a healer. And he said when he healed people, he would go out and hug a tree,
Mhm.
and the tree would take the negative energy that he had absorbed from the sick person and heal him. So yeah, I
So
love trees.
powerful, so powerful. Well, and we've had you on our show one or two times. A few years ago, I believe you were on the show as well. Um, I love what you teach, and I think it's important because people like me along the way many years ago had no awareness of any of this, and grew up on a dairy farm and all that and would not have believed, just in a workshop, right? Um, it's kind of like there's one short quote, even if we want to go to the Bible, and it says, "Test me." So it's about testing something long enough to know that it's different because I would have never believed the difference. Example, um, selling water filtration in the shower, a shower head by Nikan with BB sells a lot of them. And years ago, now 20 years, if you can believe it, we're going into 20 years. I would hear her say, oh, and it makes a difference, and your body recognizes it, and it absorbs, and you're hydrated. And don't get me wrong, I didn't question it because I had used the magnets, and I know all of this stuff is incredible, and it's changed my life. I have insoles in my shoes right now. That being said, though, once I did that, with showers, week after week after week, year after year after year. And then if I take a tub or I go somewhere traveling and I have a shower and there's no shower head, I go to the bathroom. I can't tell you how many times in an hour. Urination, I'm talking. Why? Because my body can't handle it. It can't absorb those unknown chemicals like you're talking about. And here's the sad part in our culture is that if you've never cleared yourself, detoxed yourself, freed yourself, you don't know. I mean, the biggest joke in my family coming up on sobriety 37 years, when my friends would ask me, you want something sweet? I'm sorry to tell you now, because I do consider myself somewhat intelligent. I would say, I don't like sweet stuff while I'm sitting there putting down a bottle of wine, But that being said, I realize looking back, so much of my sensitivities, so much of what I put my teachers through my parents, and everybody else was the sugar high and low. And it's like, unless though you've given yourself a couple of months or weaned off going from processed sugar to fruit, you don't know. You don't even know if you haven't done anything for months and you do grapes at night. You'll toss all night long. It's amazing once you know, and then you can't not know. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's why your work is so important. I've heard people, I'd be interested in the people that comments and things in your work, but I've heard, people say, well, we're all gonna die. That's lame excuse. Oh, we're all gonna die anyway. I'm gonna have what I want. Um, we're talking about not the quantity of years, we're talking about the quality of years.
Mhm.
And I just want to make that clear to people. If you don't have the awareness of how absolutely great you feel naturally, naturally absorbing the food that works for you, I'm telling you, you're really missing out. It's like such a high, a natural high of I can't say enough about it. Anyway, what do you find when somebody comes to you and they're overweight or overtaxed or oversugared and they kind of want your help, kind of like
Yes.
what do you think are, because I know people resist. I was one of those people, 35 years ago. What do you think is the why do people resist if they know that they're going to feel better? What do you think that is?
Yeah, well, you made so many great points. I was thinking of Theron Randolph, who was the father of allergy science, and one of the things he said was that alcohol is just even more refined than sugar, and
Mm,
so weren't interested in sugar because you already had the alcohol,
that's right.
and the sugar is not quite as refined as the alcohol, but then you go to the substitutes and you're getting literally alien substances. But I you made such a good point that people, if they don't know how good they can feel, they don't realize that it's worth it
Mhm.
to make the changes that will get their body doing what it naturally wants to do. So when people are, like you said, just not sure how devoted they are to making changes, I really try to emphasize to them that there's a lot of myths that our bodies start just falling apart at 35 or 40, and that we are living so long that it's not uh, we're getting these diseases because we're living so long, and these are diseases of aging. And so I try to break a lot of those myths wide open and get across the idea how good they can feel. And another thing is that all these different things I hear so often, well, you're either going to die of cancer or heart disease or diabetes, which one, who knows? I'm not going to worry about it. But they come as a cluster.
Mm,
They happen for the same reasons. When the body is overwhelmed either with poisons or just not getting what it needs because everything's so refined. Um, or they never get outdoors and get some natural energy, or
mhm,
they're not getting pure water, like you said, the water that you shower in, you absorb all the chlorine and nasty stuff in the tap water right into your skin. So the degenerative conditions do come in a cluster, and which one you get first just depends on your particular unique biochemistry, but they do come in a cluster. And now obesity is one of the key factors because so many people have it, and it can lead to diabetes or heart disease or cancer or autoimmune problems. So whatever you have, the medical world kind of parcels you out, puts you in the cancer silo or the heart disease silo or the kidney problems, but they are all related ultimately to not supporting the body the way it needs. So I try to explain to people it's not an either or thing. You can prevent all of these things if you do right by your body. Plus, you'll sleep better, you'll have more energy, you won't be thinking of food or trying not to think of food all the time. You'll just forget about it once you're satisfied with good food until it's time to have another meal. So it's really an education thing. That's what I try to do with my books. And then people like coaching because they like the hand holding and the accountability. But it's really the basic ideas that have to be rethought. It's really about, I went to a conference one time that was called Rethinking Everything. It was about
Mm.
homeschooling and rethinking everything. And we homeschooled our kids because I thought, well, why do they have to learn all the things we learned that we had to unlearn? So we
Yes.
just
Yeah.
skipped that part. I figure we saved them about 15 years of nonsense.
Well, I want to add to that because I know you're like me, you like learning every day. And Alvin Toffler said, in the 21st century, our issue won't be that people cannot read or write. It will be people's inability to unlearn, relearn, and then learn again. And that is the absolute truth. I love that statement. It's Alvin Toffler.
Yes, I know
Is
his
but is
work. Yes.
right. It's just it's so powerful. Well, in my line of work, connecting to spirit and psychology and whatever else that might be, um, I have people that come to me near and far and from all over the world and talk about, what's eating them, right?
Yes.
And that tends to be that big stop sign. And we're grateful for the stop sign because it brings somebody to a place of attentiveness that
Hmm.
goes, okay, something needs to shift. And yet I always say to them, maybe not the first time, but when the trust is there, if I were you, I would be more concerned with what you're eating than what's eating you. Because when you are aware of what you're eating and what is affecting you and influencing you on a daily basis, you become more grounded, you become more competent, and maybe the other things that are eating you, some of them will dissipate, or some of them you'll say in your psychology, I can't believe I put up with this, so long. I mean, I think about, being raised by, well, I'm still raising me, but in the early days of my life, my parents had this job. And I think I said this on the last show, but my dad would put butter on white bread, gooey butter, and then throw as much, a quarter of a cup, it seemed like, more and more white sugar. Okay. And then I'd be sent to school, and then I got bad conduct grades. Tibble's off the
Oh.
chart. She's so loud. She said this. Well, my dad was a sugarholic, which
Ah,
made him a rageaholic.
mm-hmm.
So it's those kind of things. And to me, within this wonderful time that we're talking, I would almost beg of you, listeners, if you would just be willing to go 30 days with something different before you add it back in, and then notice the difference. For example, now I eat carbs, complex carbs. They're good for you. We're taught they're not, all that. This is Randy's profession. Go to Randy Rolfe, Rolfe, or her website, onesingleingredient.com. This is her expertise. But what I know, because I've lived it and I've had the experience, is for a long time, I didn't eat. I mean, you can't hardly not have a carb, but I was very low on the carb count. And I picked one afternoon that, I don't know, something emotional was going on. And I thought, let me get out those salty, Lay's, slimy potato chips, and not just eat 3, because if you deprive yourself for a long time, well, half a bag, the next thing I know, and you know how much energy I have, Randy, all day long. I'm asleep on the couch. I'm like, I can't function. But this is what people are carrying, and they either make it age related or what's eating them related, and it's things that's going in their body. And I wouldn't have believed it either. I don't blame you for questioning it, but it's important to question it, because it's like you were saying, Randy, on your path, and like I would say on my path. My commitment has always been to be younger. I'm not talking about denying the number of my years or anything, but to be younger in my being, and to have more energy than most people I meet, and to feel great physically. And that being said, then you don't have to go far, because you pay attention to the signs like you did. Well, I went to this. Well, I heard this lecture. I heard this. I saw that. I got to know a woman along the way that she said, you say one single ingredient. You talk about the reading the boxes and things. But she said in the grocery line, if anything has more than 3 ingredients, keep walking. Put
Yes, put it back on the shelf.
it back on the shelf.
Yes, and I love what you said about how people feel. It's really a whole awareness for people to realize how much their diet affects their moods.
Mm-hmm.
And we have movies where when people get depressed, they pig out on all, their apartments filled with all the trash of the fast foods. Well, it just makes it worse. And like
Mm-hmm.
you said, grabbing the potato chips when you felt deprived, it really affects the moods. And so another thing I try to tell people is it's not really mind over matter. The spirit and the mind is in the brain, and the brain is an organ, and it needs good nutrition just like every other organ, even more so.
Yes.
The whole blood system works very hard to keep everything balanced so that the brain doesn't fail, because if the brain fails, we die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the most important organ. So the body tries very hard to keep everything right for the brain. It's our job to feed the body. So we have to use our mind to choose properly for the body so that our mind can stay healthy. It's a kind of a positive circle we have to work on to use our rational powers to say, well, that's not good for me, and I'll feel depressed tomorrow if I binge on that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I said about the family relationships, if everybody's well fed and got a good night's sleep, everything goes a whole lot smoother. And
I
so
believe we could probably go further than that. I think we could be bold and brave and say that since we're not naming people, that so many divorces, it's one thing to say separation and divorces are 50, 60%. I haven't checked the numbers lately, but I have interviewed divorce attorneys that say the last I heard it was like 50%, 55%. And then those same people, the number goes up of a second divorce, more than likely to be somewhere between 65 and 70%. And I would go on record and say, I bet you a lot of that is equated to what's eating them and what they're eating, because of
mhm.
the moods. And Richard Carlson said that in his book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. He came on the planet, he lives 40 something years. He offered don't sweat the small stuff, don't sweat the small stuff in family and at work. Amazing material. But he said that that's the reason he found in his work as a therapist is so many people divorced because they try to make agreements or come to understandings when they're into bad moods. And when you eat whole foods like Randy and her husband do, or who are so happily married, or like we do, who are so happy, it's like we are consistent, so there's issues that happen in life, but they're out here, they're not in here. And then
Mhm.
you're more consistent in your moods. And so it just makes for a much healthier life. The concern that I have often is the diet that so many children are on, that sodas and pure sugar, and it often just goes right into the other level of feed me, I'm addicted. It's fascinating.
Yeah, 67% of the average child's uh, diet in America is ultra processed food, not just processed, ultra processed. And
Mm,
soda is one of the biggest. And people sometimes don't even think about beverages as being part of their diet, but there's so many additives and so much sugar. And the US dietary recommendations are no more than 9 teaspoons, which is an awful lot, no more than 9 teaspoons for an adult male and no more than 6 teaspoons for a female. But in a typical 12-ounce soda, there are 12 teaspoons. So one drink, you've already gone more than the government recommends. And
mhm,
the recommendations are very loose because they are significantly influenced by the food processors, to leave room for our ultra processed foods because they make all their profits from those. So it's what you were saying about moods and divorce. Yeah, the repeated divorces, people aren't taking care of themselves.
mm-mm,
So it's easy to, blame the other guy, or say, oh, we were just in too much stress, or, had trouble with the kids or something. But just whether you're feeding yourself right can make a huge difference. And also different personalities benefit from emphasis on different foods. And I've done a great deal of study on that. I have a book on that too. But if you're most sugar addicts are very volatile, and they can be the life of the party or get completely depressed, or both in the same day. Where other people who get high on fatty stuff, they tend to be more even uh, in there. They don't go wild, but they can be very weepy and emotional and cause a lot of problems. So they've got to be careful not to eat too much fat when they're feeling down. So there's basically 4 classic types that go all the way back to Hippocrates and the ancient Greeks, but it's been verified by modern science. And I first discovered in my nutrition courses in the 80s that there was that correspondence, that now we know because of the different hormones that are excited when we're under stress. Um, Different people grab different things. Some just want another hamburger. They don't want the cake at all. Someone else wants the chocolate. Someone wants the pizza. Um, but when you know that one child is a pizza lover and the other just wants candy all the time, if you know how to balance them out, it can make all the difference. Same
mhm,
with a marriage, when the spouses have different personalities. You want to be able to balance them. And again, if you're eating whole foods, it's a lot easier to balance because no one's overdoing it. You don't have the refined sugar. You don't have the fatty oils that they can just, fill their sandwich with endless mayonnaise or oils, and get their worst side of their character emphasized by playing to their worst cravings.
mm. That's so good. I can listen to you all afternoon. Well, because this is it's so evident, and we do have somewhat of an epidemic. I don't even know if somewhat is the word. We have an epidemic, and we are consumer driven, advertising driven society. And So and fast, and we've convinced ourselves that fast means better, and fast in the moment may mean convenient, but over here, there's a price to pay. And so, like I say, yeah, you can go to the drive-through windows all day long, and eventually you're going to be going through another drive-through window called getting my prescriptions through the
Prescription.
drive-through window. So drive-through window people live their lives going through a drive-through window, getting different things. But that tends to be what any study, I think, would guarantee. The other part of it that is important, I feel, is that, like you were saying, there's not one size fits all. Like I know people that choose to eat beef. I'm not one of those people, and it doesn't work for me. So it doesn't matter how many commercials or how many memes are on Facebook and how wonderful it is for you. If I test myself, it is a big no, not gonna happen, and this is key. This is key in our health, and it's key in our well-being. There's not one size fits all. Now, when I say that, we don't need the argumentative going, "Yeah, but you just said Whole Foods is the way to go." Yes, but the types of things that you bring into your body, um, I always say your vibration doesn't match the vibration of your parents. You may not be able to eat the same thing. Now, if you lived at Randy Roth's house, you might be able to, but for the most part, it's not it's not the same, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Like I was saying, people are very individual, and you have a better chance of keeping everybody in balance if you're starting with real foods, because their bodies will be able to process it in a way that's beneficial.
Mhm,
And one of the things that comes up often with people, not only that they want to go with their own preferences, but as far as getting back to real single ingredient diet, they say, oh, but organic and real food is so expensive. And I just wanted to reinforce that point that you made, that the expense, okay, if you pay 10 or 15% more now, but I haven't spent a cent on an over-the-counter drug in 40 years. So
mhm,
I save all kinds of money not spending it on remedies, because I don't need any remedies, because I don't have anything to remedy. I'm have everything's working and energetic and have no complaints.
mhm.
And my husband, I'm 76 and my husband's 80. And when he goes for a checkup, the doctor's every time he says, the nurse first says, what medications do you want? And he's like, none. And they're like, no, I mean, really, what medications are
I
you
know,
on? And
I
he's
know.
like, none. I take a lot of vitamins and minerals, and but no, I don't need any meds. So the doctor always looks at his chart and like, wow, everything looks right. Keep going, keep doing what you're doing.
Mhm.
And that's a nice thing to hear from your doctor. So, but it's really important to know that what's the saying that you can, if you
Take them to water, but you can't make them drink?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, but if you sacrifice your health now, you'll be sacrificing your life later, or something like that.
Mhm.
Your cost, if you're
Yeah,
saving money on
there's
your
one that
diet.
says something like, oh, what is it? Now I've gotta figure this out. I love it. It's something about the habits you develop early in your life will be the
Mm.
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up. Next
Yeah,
time
well,
you're on the show, I will have that one. But it's so very true. And again, as you're out there listening, because I know what it was like. There's a with one of my friends, she's been eating like, Randy Rolfe all her life. And I remember in my 30s, I just gotten sober, and I would go and I would look in a refrigerator, and I was comfortable enough with my own self. I don't know how healthy I was, but I was comfortable with myself that I wasn't pretentious. And I went, "What in the world are we gonna eat here?" I need some real food. I was like, "I don't even know what half this stuff is," you know? But, years later, then she can come to my home and everything she eats, I have here. But I know how I was at first, and I
Mhm.
know how a lot of our listeners are. "Ah, it's no big deal. It doesn't matter. Oh, it's too much trouble. Oh, it's too much work." No, it isn't. What's work is going against the grain of our inner listening. And it's likened to the success stories of when people teach you to declutter your
Mhm.
home. Um, it's like you hold a piece in your hand, or an image or a picture or a sculpture, and you go, "How does this make me feel?" Does it
Right.
make me feel good? Is it necessary? Does it bring up sadness and stuff? Well, that's the way that I muscle test a lot of stuff, even vitamins, every now and then, not every time, but over a few months, I will muscle test. I want one, I want two. No, I don't need two. One, I want one. And it is in alignment, in harmony with your own body. And I think that's the arrival point is, how good do you want to feel? And are you willing to make just a few changes in order to make that happen? Because once you're there, you're 75, said 75. Did I get that right?
76, 76.
76. I just turned 66. And I love to say that. And people go, "No way." And I go, "Oh, way. Yes. If all the numbers add up, that would be true." And they go, "I can't believe that." And I go, "Well, I can't either, but it's true." But it's because of putting the time in, um,
Mhm.
and being willing to benefit every day. Like unto your husband, I love it when they say, I was meeting with a financial consultant yesterday. He's taking all the data and, doing what they do very well, and very particular, and, writing it all down. We're ending the call, and meeting him for the first time, and I went, "But I want to talk to you about real wealth." And he said, "Okay." I said, "I want to share with you real wealth. Real wealth is being healthy. Real wealth is when you get to be in your 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, and the doctor said, 'I need a list of your prescriptions.' And you hand them back the paper with the line in it, and they go, 'What?' It's like, 'Don't take any.' What?" And it's unfortunate that data, and I don't know enough about it, but as we're talking, I'm thinking more data needs to be taken to influence a new domino effect with the medical association. In other words, I've had 10 patients this week that don't take any medication. I know it's possible. A
Wouldn't that be
different
nice?
way of
Yeah.
right? A different way of seeing, a different way. Give me the data. I would love to see that happen. I don't I don't know where the industry with pharma will go, but it will be interesting to see.
Yes, yes, and I did think of the saying that I was trying to remember. It's
Oh, good.
if you spend your health chasing wealth, you will be spending your wealth chasing your health.
Mm. Say that again?
So if you spend your wealth if you spend your health now chasing wealth, you will end up spending your wealth trying to recapture your health.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's
So
beautiful.
it's a time thing that, if you take care of yourself now, your wealth can build, but you have to do both.
Mhm.
You need to take care of yourself first. Otherwise, all your wealth will go to trying to feel better again. later
Mm-hmm.
on. And there are a lot of people in that position. And it's sad. It's very sad. And what you were saying about just having the awareness, and like you say, muscle testing things, um, just being aware. Like one of my clients from my coaching program, uh, she sent me a nice testimonial, and she said that she's just more aware. And when she chooses food, it she decides, is this what my body really is going to benefit from, or do I have a better form of that stuff? You know, she said that, and that's made a huge difference. Just having that moment where she uses her mind before she just, you know, satisfies her taste buds.
Mm-hmm. It's so powerful just to have that space. And it
Mm-hmm.
can be stillness. It could be a blessing over your food. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we do that. We bless the food. It could be considered sacred. It can also be blessing the food of a vibration that will match your body,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and seeing the meal as a way of your lunch or dinner, not as a way of, oh, I'm, just cramming and getting it done, but of a space of having an experience, and bringing it in. But I also like to thank the farmers that took the time and how it got to the plate. I think that's very important, um, and makes such a difference. But it's definitely it's a vibrant, energetic life when you align with working with eating whole foods, eliminating so many of the cravings, the highs and lows. Um, It'd be amazing to you how many more people you'll actually like in your life.
So true.
Right?
Yes. And I think, your point about life, so often we say, oh, well, like you said, just putting the food in, it's like putting gas in the car. No, like you
Mm-mm.
said at the very beginning, we are part of life, and
Mhm.
bringing the tree out because you were people living there, loving it. And we are living things, and we are way more complicated than any car that's ever been invented. And
Mhm.
we never will know all the amazing redundancies and supporting elements that we have in the body. They're always discovering some new thing. And unfortunately, they often try to, well, how do we manipulate this with a new drug? But no, the body knows better. And
Mhm.
we just need to give it what it needs, and realize that we're living beings. And just like a deer in the forest, we're supposed to be eating what we were evolved to eat, and
Mhm.
it will feed our body and our spirit and our mind and our ability to stay balanced in our moods, and as well as vibrant for a century. Uh,
Absolutely.
a woman just
Absolutely.
died at 117. She's the oldest known living person in Spain,
I
117. So
saw that.
apparently, we did the math. She may have lived through the Spanish flu back then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. And more than likely, this is just following my own, gut feeling, if you will. Um, I imagine there are some Aborigines and people of tribes that perhaps are older than that, but
Oh, I do believe it. We just don't have the
understandably,
chronology, the records.
understandably, they're not going to go somewhere and tell anybody. and we don't blame them. You'll appreciate the story that my great grandmother was half Seminole and had very
Oh,
dark skin, and so my mother took great pride in that, and so she would, if I would say something, or I went to visit the Cherokee group today, well, yeah, that's because you're Indian. If I said, oh, oh, I love turquoise, well, of course you would, you're Indian. When I studied shamanism, of course. It's because you're Indian, of course, it makes perfect sense. So, when 1, 2, 3 or Ancestry, all that came out and I got my blood checked, not one speck of Indian, and
Oh,
my mother I'm like European and, all this, and she went, "And they lied to us this whole time?" I can't believe it. They told us that we were, and you mean we weren't? And why in the world, on and on. I mean, my mother rarely got upset, but when she did, the earth, you knew it. But then after the fact, and as time went on, it's like, it's because we don't have the data.
right, right.
I would imagine not many of them went in and volunteered to get their blood in the data system. I wouldn't. Um, and I think that has something,
Oh, I wouldn't
to
be a
do
bit
with that,
surprised.
for
Yes.
sure. But what I will do with that story is I will say that commercials sell products. They're not really designed to sell the truth. On a rare occasion, they are saying the same thing, but more often than not, they don't. They don't tell the truth. They wanna sell a product, follow
Mhm,
the money. And
mhm.
so, if you think that, milk creates calcium in 2024, good luck to you. It creates allergies, and your children wind up with allergic reactions to dairy and lactose intolerant, and do we need to go on with the list? And, that's you don't need, sinus and allergy medicine often. This is not a rule. It's not a one time, but I would sit and watch my mom eat cheese every day, and she'd have to take I go, "Mom, it's the cheese." "Ah, phooey." Phooey. I go, "Would you be willing to" but are you willing? I think that's the question that, Randy and I are landing in on today. If you want different, are you willing to be different or to see the difference? Because it's not a huge investment for a short window of time of being willing. Now, I will be clear, when you're detoxing initially, it's not such a great feeling because you're coming off the drugs of sugar and all the goo and the chemicals. However, once you get in line with who you are, wow, that
You don't
vibrancy of
wanna go
life.
back. You
No,
don't wanna go back.
we don't wanna go back. That seems to be a popular saying these days. Yay, we got it in there. Um,
That's true.
Absolutely. Well, listen, you are such a pleasure, is such full of wisdom. Everyone, I want to remind you, it's also is on the social, randyroff.com and singleingredient.com. So go to those websites. And I do recall that if you go to singleingredient.com, there's a questionnaire or something, isn't there, Randy?
Yeah, this single ingredient diet.com, and
That's it.
there's a free video training all about it. Yeah.
Okay, let's say that again. I always say if you're gonna bloop, then do a good one. Okay, let's give this another try.
It's single ingredient diet.
Singleingredient.com.
Yeah.
Go there and it will offer you a lot of information and you'll get
Mhm.
to know more about yourself. I want to thank the Institute for Leadership and Lifelong Learning. We need to get you on there teaching too. But I want
Oh,
to
that'd
thank
be.
all of you tuning in, and I was so grateful for your support. I know you have many people that all you got to do is click that share button and let them know the great things that will help their lives. Sometimes a video, instead of you saying it, they will actually hear it and believe it. It's always a good tool. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Randy. You're such a gift. and keep
Thank you
shining
too.
and glowing
Been
for
a
sure.
pleasure.